My mistake. Yeah, it's like, it's more for me, I'm a bit, I'm just as a tourist here. So I'm not really, I don't have my gear ready. Okay, so basically, Sati is quite simple. He sees everywhere and everything in me, and he's never lost to anyone, no lost to Krishna, and Krishna is not lost to him, and he's not lost to Krishna, basically. So let's start from 31. We can read out 31, perhaps.
Okay. 6.31. Translation. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the super soul, knowing that I and the super soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. Where did we come across Ekadvam, Vignesh? Do you remember?
Yes, Prabhu, in the Ishopanishad verse.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, mantra 7.
Yeah, exactly. It comes also in 6 and 7, I think, even.
Yeah, Ekatvam Anupashyat. There is some verse in mantra 7 that I have seen.
Yeah, definitely. So it can be easily misconstrued here. I mean, an impersonalist obviously may misconstrue that verse, but luckily, by the grace of Prabhupada, we remain fixed in the proper understanding. What is the proper understanding?
Like it is, like Prabhupada gives a multiple explanation. Like Ekatvam means to like agree to serve Krishna, to dovetail the interest of the soul with the desire of the Lord. So in that sense, we are one. Our interest is non-different from the interest of Krishna.
Yeah, that was the definition of the Shri Show, definitely. Yeah. And here, I think it refers more to the fact that is not different from Super Soul. Krishna is not different from Super Soul. Ekatvam, Sarvata, in all respects. So this is what's to be emphasized here. And obviously, once you understand that, then you can move steadily towards realization of the Lord as Bhagwan. Because the danger, I mean, Ashtanga Yoga is great, but the danger in the end result is that when you see the Lord in your heart, this is 628, and the perfection, you finally behold the Lord. Pashanti yam surayoho, Rig Veda is saying that. The danger is, okay, 628, you become a devotee, on the spot, a pure devotee, or that's extremely detrimental. You think that you are this entity, the Lord yourself. And then it's mentioned that you merge in Paramatma. And that is extremely, extremely detrimental because you cannot come out. When you merge in Brahman, we know that Patanjalaho, 10.232 explained that Yadushpat Angraya Patanjalaha, because they don't cling on the Lord's feet, sooner or later Patanjalaha, they're going to fall. But once you merge into Paramatma, you cannot come out. I remember my Guru Maharaj gave a class on this long back. This is a danger of this path also. If you do it properly, 628, you become a pure devotee and you engage into pure loving service to the Lord. But there's a trap. This is the danger of Ashtanga Yoga. Do you want to add up anything on 31?
I just had a question, like merging in Paramatma. Merging in Paramatma means, is it like merging in the body of the Lord, like a Sayuja that we talk about? Ishwar Sayuja?
Yeah, I mean, Sayuja Mukti obviously is Brahmanand, you merge into the Brahman, which is bad in and of itself, but as I say, 10.232 explained, Brahma and the demigods explain that you can come out. Sooner, it takes perhaps years of time to get over the bliss of Brahman, because only a devotee can claim further than Brahmanand, because to come to a stage where you have no anxiety, we have been harboring anxiety for millions of kalpas. And while we are sojourning in this world, we are trying to make our settlement permanent. So to come to a stage of pure bliss, it takes to get over that bliss of Brahmanand, it takes millions of years. And once you have gone over that, it takes a long, long time, and then you fall down once you have gone over that. But I remember my Guru Maharaj was very specific long ago. He said, if you merge in Paramatma, you cannot come out.
So does that mean that we lose the individuality? The individuality is lost when you merge into Paramatma, is it?
Yeah, individuality is lost, but I was struck by this statement of his. He said, you cannot come out. This is extremely, it's a dead end. It's a dead end. So that is why Ashtanga Yoga is a legitimate path, no doubt, but we have to come to 628. Otherwise, if we have some Mayavadi slant still persisting in the heart, we may end up merging, because we may identify ourselves to that Paramatma vision that we can finally see in the heart. Okay, so where are we? How do you understand 32? Yeah, 32 is very interesting because I spent some time on 32. Go ahead for 32.
Translation. He is the perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. Oh, Arjuna.
Yeah. So my question was to both of you, how do you understand 32? As you answered quite aptly, actually. I've got your question. Go ahead, explain to me again, because you made a very good point.
Yeah, I just consider it in the terms of like how a devotee, what is the nature of a devotee that it exemplifies. Like a pure devotee is very compassionate by his very nature. Like we normally say, like Vaishnava is like para dukkha dukhi. So he can feel the happiness and the distress of other living entity has its own happiness and distress. So in that sense, he can see the presence of the Lord and see all living entity as a part and parcel of the Lord.
Yes.
Just like other entities are struggling in this material world, he also feels that pain. And so not caring for his personal satisfaction, he tries to uplift the fallen living entities. Like how Prahlad Maharaj did. Like I think that is a verse in Bhagavatam 7.9.43, where he explains how he's not concerned for his own liberation, but he is concerned for the other people who are making elaborate plans for material happiness.
Yeah, it's a very good verse. Yeah.
So he's expressing that concern, and in that sense, I think the devotee is able to, in a proper perspective, compare the reality of this material world. He can relate that while he sees other living entities, and that's how it's very compassionate in that sense.
Yeah, because also he has gone himself through the suffering that this particular entity is experiencing. Yeah. You know, it doesn't mean the devotee hasn't gone, because he hasn't been always a saint. Devotee has gone through different trials and checks and trials and in his life, even in his previous life. So he must have experienced himself also the suffering. So because of that also, he identifies with the suffering of others, you know. And he sees that both the happiness and distress are there in the jivas, you know. And he understands that in terms of suffering and in terms of happiness, we are equal. This is also another slant to it. You understand? You may be a millionaire, you may be a pauper in the street, but in terms of the suffering is the same. And in other words, all beings are equally originally equal in terms of their share of happiness and their share of distress. And another consideration that I had also is that the remedy is the same, is applicable for him and for me, for everyone. The remedy is, which is good for myself, is also good for himself, for herself. And what is bad is also applicable to everyone. In other words, the good and the bad applies to all Jivatmas. So in that sense, 32 explained that by comparison to his own self, he understands that yes, the happiness and the distress for others are all the same everywhere. So I should do something. Savasukino Vavantu. I should definitely try to make them all happy. This is the point. Paradukaduki, like you say. He has this vision of helping others because people are stuck in the mud, basically. So that is why he preaches the message of God. So 32 is excellent. And that is why, again, it reminds me that in the beginning of this chapter, Krishna explained that the neophyte Ashtanga yogi is called Yoga Rurukshu, we discussed. Just like the Nishkam Kama yogi, he does activities until he attains the higher level of Dhyan Yoga Rudha. Then only he can give up work and engage solely in yoga practice once he's on the level of Dhyan. And we know he's going to leave home, he's going to go to a settled place and engage in tap, engage in severe austerities. So that was my question to you, actually, to both of you. Is what we are discussing in terms of liberation, is it the same? What the Nishkam Kama Yogi attains in terms of liberation at the end of the 5th chapter is quite clear, compared to the liberation that the Ashtanga Yogi is going to access to. Is it the same?
Yeah, Prabhu, like I have, as for my understanding, what I have written is like liberation is same
Yes.
by both of them.
Yes.
At an ontological level. But what I have understood is like people who perfect in Ashtanga Yoga, they're mostly in Shantaras.
Yes.
And they are situated at that particular ras. But devotees like who can further go ahead in Dasya, Sakhya and other rasas. So in that sense, from the point of view of rasa, there could be gradations within even the happiness that one experiences in the stage of liberation.
Yeah, that's a very good remark. I agree with that. Yeah, definitely Nishkam Kama Yoga opens the vista much wider, definitely, because it's going to propel the candidate into Bhakti Ras, definitely. But again, remember 628 is the gate between Ashtanga Yoga, between perfection of Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. 628 is the gate, is the pass, the gateway, I would say. He achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So basically, he becomes a Bhakti Yogi. He becomes a pure Bhakti Yogi. If he hasn't identified himself as the super soul, then if he does that, he's doomed. That's the danger. Okay, next. Now we're entering another section. Obviously, Arjun doesn't agree. From here, from 33 onwards to, I guess, 36 or so. You can read out those 4 verses in one shot because, up to 36 is the same point, basically. Okay. 33 to 36.
Yeah. Text 33. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think is more difficult than controlling the wind. Text 35. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Text 36. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion.
Thank you, Vignesh, sorry. So I wanted to stress, and I think I kind of transpired that in the homework I gave you. What is the state of mind? Why Arjuna is putting forward these arguments? Remember, we are at the onset of an imminent war. So I think it's very pertinent when he says here, what is it? You know, when he says talking about what is actually, it's in 33, yeah, 33, talking about being neutral. He find it, because at one point in the 6th chapter, it's mentioned you have to be neutral. You should be towards friends. Actually, in the 5th chapter, sorry. It's in the 5th chapter, I believe. You have to be neutral towards your enemies. You have to be even towards your friend. So I was thinking in terms of the war. What could be going on in the mind of Arjuna here? Because
he was on a war field. So for him being a Kshatriya, it is not practical for him to practice Ashtanga yoga and try to control the mind, because he needs some kind of quick fix. Yes. And this process of Ashtanga itself is very tedious and time consuming. And definitely. So I think it is not possible for a Kshatriya to practice that thing. I think it's I think it's a common question for all of us. Like Arjuna, what is asking is actually even something which we all would ask in this scenario.
Definitely. So, I mean, I came across a very interesting note of Baladev Vidyabhushan. Wanted to share, because on 33, Baladev Vidyabhushan explained that we may agree on an equal treatment between friends and neutral persons. Yes, this we can swallow the test. But we can never agree on treating enemies or those who criticize us on the same terms, especially as a Kshatriya. You understand? Because if one is to see with discrimination that Paramatma is situated everywhere, without making distinctions, that state cannot be permanent. Baladev Vidyabhushan explained. That state cannot be permanent because the strong fickle mind cannot keep that discrimination for long. You understand? This is the point of Arjuna. He may say, Krishna, I may be able to consider Duryodhana neutrally, even though he's my arch enemy, but I won't be able to do it forever. So in that sense, I reject it. You know, elsewhere, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained in the 11th canto that Uddhav would offer his obeisances to Duryodhana. Can you imagine? But he said, we cannot imitate Uddhav. We're not Uddhav. Uddhav would offer his dandavat to Duryodhana. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, we should not imitate Uddhav. You know? So that is why, in terms of within the war context, it's not practical for Arjuna to remain neutral towards Duryodhana. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So what is the answer of Arjuna, of Krishna? And that's one thing you kind of forgot in your homework. Immediately you said, you quoted Krishna, Abhyasena tu Kaunteya, Viragyena cha griyate, yes, 35. But before Krishna says that, he says, yes, you're right. He acknowledged it. He acknowledged. Krishna acknowledged, yes, it is difficult. So that has to be noted. You acknowledge this is difficult, but still you can make it. So but it has to be acknowledged also. Controlling the mind and senses is not easy. So Krishna, even though he's God himself, he acknowledged that. It's not easy. So in the purport of 35, Srila Prabhupada says, by detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn Vairagya. And I don't know if you know the verse, you must be knowing, I know it's a verse by Kavi Kanapur. Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga shikshatameka purusha puranaha. You know the verse?
Yeah, I heard this quite.
Kavi Kanapur has written many beautiful verses on Vairagya. He has written a book, Chaitanya, forgetting the book. And he defines what is Vairagya there. And he goes, it's a beautiful definition pertaining to Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He says, whatever doesn't foster your Krishna consciousness, we should reject. It's totally different from what we hear in other paths. Whatever doesn't foster our Krishna consciousness. Like for instance, I'm taking a very blunt example. Prabhupada would say to one devotee, you get married. And then next minute, you take sannyas.
Yeah.
So, it's like opposite instructions to two different individuals. Because he knows this fellow is not going to make it. So better he gets married. At least he will be somewhat pacified. And then the other fellow, he can foresee, yes, he's got the adhikar. He's sick and tired of the whole thing. He has gone through the whole thing. You take sannyas, you have my blessing. You have my blessing to get married. So this is the definition of Vairagya pertaining to us, Gaudiya Vaishnava. Whatever doesn't foster Krishna consciousness should be rejected. And of course, at the same time, in the name of Yukta Vairagya, we should know limits. Srila Prabhupada, one time in Africa, he even accepted 1 lakh, I think it was $1 lakh coming from drug trafficking. Can you imagine? Who can do that? Who can do that? It is dirty money. But Srila Prabhupada engaged it solely and wholeheartedly in Krishna consciousness. Who has the capacity to? So each one of us, we can fly our own airplane, we are flying to a certain heights in Krishna consciousness. So we should know limits. No, I cannot do that. It's too much for me. I won't be able to handle it. We should be honest. And I don't have this all-encompassing facility for using everything in Krishna consciousness. So this is what I can do. Some devotees, you give them $5 million, they're going to engage with $5 million in Krishna consciousness. Others, you give them $5 million, they're going to engage $2 million in Krishna consciousness. The rest they will keep. So that is why Krishna gives differently to individuals, even within ISKCON. Because not everyone has the same capacity to absorb things and to engage things in Krishna, to dovetail things in Krishna consciousness. You want to discuss on this one?
Oh, I was just recollecting the pastime of Sudama. So yeah. Krishna gave, initially didn't give anything to him. While he returned, I think his desire was not to enjoy, but his desire was to just serve Lord Krishna. So finally he gave a lot of wealth to Sudama. So because Krishna knew that he will not misuse that. But for others, maybe there's this tendency that he will misuse and he will get away from bhakti.
Yeah. That is why the verse is there, 1088:8. Lord Krishna is telling you this here. But to go back to Sudam Vipra, Jiva Goswami mentions that actually he had a tiny little anartha of remaining poor. I read that the other day, very interesting. Yeah. He had the tiny complacency of enjoying his poorness, you know, like I'm poor, so I'm very Krishna conscious. So to break that last little vestige of little anartha is tiny anartha. Krishna made him more wealthy than in the dead. It's amazing, actually. Jiva Goswami gives that tiny little slant, you know. Oh, she's coming now. Wow, she's maha late. Huh?
Yeah, she's came.
She's 1 hour late. Wow. Hare Krishna. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Welcome.
I was dressing the deities. I have to.
Oh,
rush.
yeah. Sorry. So, yeah, anyway, I could see something was going on because you were late. You were late by 1 hour, but it's okay. We
1
chatted.
hour?
Well, we
You
started
told
at
me
6.
8:30.
We started
you
at
told
6.
Me you told me 8:30 American time.
I told you 6 p.m. in India. I don't know what it is in America. It's
I didn't check. That's all right.
That's okay, no problem. Yeah, I checked on the internet, but probably the internet is wrong, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's here, it's 7 o'clock here, 7 p.m. So we are basically in the 6th chapter, Goloka. We have reached that section where Arjuna is rejecting the path in and of itself because he finds it too difficult, and he finds it very impractical and unendurable. And we are discussing with Vignesh as to why he finds it difficult. Do you have any? Can you shed some light why Arjuna find it difficult, unendurable, unpractical? Right? Lord Krishna has been telling us the path of Ashtanga Yoga, controlling the mind and senses, living in a sacred place, being neutral towards friends, enemies. It's a very lofty path. So why yes, please.
What I read is just that Arjuna says the mind is very difficult to control.
Yes.
That is very restless and endurable.
Yes. What else you want to say?
You got me?
I got you. I heard you very well. You are 100% hearable.
Yeah.
And also we discussed just now with Vignesh that we quoted Baladev Vidyabhushan that he cannot consider forever Duryodhana neutrally. His mind won't be able to bear that. You know, it's okay to consider a friend and a neutral person the same, fine. But to consider Duryodhana, for instance, which is an enemy, arch enemy of the Pandavas, to consider Duryodhana neutrally, Arjuna is telling very clearly, I can do it for a little while, but not forever. I won't be able to do that. Because he has done, and Baladev Vidyabhushan tends to corroborate. He says, yes, this is right. That is why Srila Prabhupada says, you forgive, but you don't forget. You know that? When someone is, you know, just mistreating us left, right, and corner, you forgive, yes, but you don't forget. It's important. And we cannot expect that we're going to get along fine with everyone on earth, even with devotees. At our level, at a very high level, like Uddhav, he will offer his obeisances to Duryodhana, Uddhav. But Bhaktisiddhanta reminded us, you cannot imitate Uddhav. As a Madhyam, even, we have to discriminate. We know that. Madhyam discriminates between 4 persons.
Yes.
So, welcome. You must be quite purified to have worshipped the deities.
Yeah. Yeah. The devotee told me, I said, 8:30, I'll have time. You know, I thought it was 8:30. I have to start over here.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess I
saw you figure out the time and told me the time.
It's 6. It's 7 now. So we are just going through the questions. Don't worry. Do you want to add up anything, Vignesh, on this particular section up to 36? Basically, Arjuna is saying, no, I'm sorry, Krishna, I cannot, I'm rejecting this path. But of course, what does Krishna say in 35, 36? Does he acknowledge the difficulty of Arjuna not?
Yes.
He acknowledged, and he gives a further clue, we just discussed with Vignesh, Abhyas Vairagya. Practice, be detached. And even if you fail, you carry on. You carry on. But that's what I'm saying, you know, you don't associate with persons who are going to trigger in you bad feelings or bad habits. You know, if you cannot get along with a devotee, don't associate with him for the time being. You know, I'm saying you offer your obeisances, but you keep a distance because it may flare up again. Is it fine on this section for everyone?
Yes, Prabhu.
Goloka, I know you just boarded the train. The train is running.
I'm still at the temple.
Yeah, I know you're still in your mind must be on the deities, which is great. Actually, it's non-different.
It's all right.
So you know, I mean, who can find fault with you? You are totally well situated. So 37, we are entering a different section now. What is it? Let's read. Arjuna is speaking again. Very pertinent question. 37.
Yeah.
Goloka, you can read 37, 637. Take your guitar.
Read 36, 37.
36, it's over. 37, you can read out. Actually, you can read out in one go. 37, 38, 39. It's the same line of thoughts, you know. Go ahead.
Okay, hold on, okay?
Yeah.
1 second, I'm getting on. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting it, Prabhu. Okay. 36. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But those whose mind is controlled and strive by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who is in the beginning take to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later deceases due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Almighty Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence falls away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a raven cloud with no position in any sphere?" Till 38, you told me, isn't it?
39 is okay. You can read 39, it's part of it.
This is my doubt, O Krishna. I ask you to dispel it completely, but for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt.
Thank you. So please tell me, you two, how pertinent it is, this question. Because it's logical, naturally speaking, that as we say in English, you're going to lose it both ways. You're going to lose it naturally by joining ISKCON. What if you fall away within ISKCON? You cannot make it. You drop away. You drop out, as we say in school. He is the dropout. He has lost everything. Naturally, he lost his career and he lost his spiritual life. So it's a very, very pertinent question. How would you deal with that with a layman, a layperson? very pertinent. This question is eternal. It applies in all time, space, circumstances. It's a very pertinent question. We have seen devotees, I don't know about you, but I have seen devotees, you know, they joined after me and they just gave up a good life. They had good career even, you know. Sometimes even it was more dramatic. That's why as a preacher, we should be very careful. The guy may be married, one wife, two, 3 kids. He may, and on the spur of the moment, he may even drop everything. Join his camp, 2-3 years down the road, 5 years, he cannot make it. So as a preacher, we should be extremely vigilant. What is the best path for this fellow? Anyway, I want to share with you, how do you find this question pertinent? Did you come across situations where people are on the brink of becoming a devotee? But they may ask you this question: what if I fail, Vignesh? What if I fail, Mataji? What's the security? That's a very logical. We have to put ourselves in their shoes. That's a very logical point. You know, you go somewhere, you are a bit in the unknown. What if I fail in that new path? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my wife, to my kids? What's my future? What's the guarantee? How would you tackle that?
It's like naturally the one is a devotee of a Lord, and not just a devotee, but even if it's a transcendentalist.
Yes.
Who is following a particular process of yoga and is following it firmly. Now he definitely doesn't have any any liking or aspiration on material, some material ambitions. So in that sense, he doesn't have any material aspirations. So he just takes his entire faith on the spiritual process that is following. So if at all he falls, then I think the doubt of Arjuna is quite pertinent, because it's like, I just give an analogy of how, suppose we are traveling in an ocean, and suppose there are 2 boats on which we are keeping one foot on one boat and another foot on another boat. And it's like the one boat is of material aspiration, like desire, like karma kanda is desire to heavenly planets, desire for some material fulfillment. Now, of course, the yogis doesn't desire that. They are one notch higher than the karmakandis. So for them, the only fallback option is spiritual practice that they are doing. And even if they fail in that, then they may they may have a self-loathing kind of attitude that, no, I have failed miserably. Either I'm not into material estimation as well as on spiritual estimation, I have failed. They may feel that kind of dejection, when, if at all, there is a fall down in spiritual life. So in that sense, the doubt of Arjuna is quite pertinent, that even if a small amount of spiritual thing that we do, it has definitely a lasting effect. That is what Krishna will explain later.
Yes.
That it's kind of assurance that Krishna is giving, that even if you fall back, even if it does fall down, still there is no loss.
Yeah.
I think that is an assurance that Krishna is giving.
Yes, thank you, Vignesh. Do you want to add up anything, Goloka, Mataji? I cannot hear you. Huh? I think you muted yourself.
Okay. We always hear, like there's no loss or diminution in the path of devotional service.
Yes, no, 240.
Whatever we did, we stake it up. We pick it up our next birth. In case we are very, very sincere, we'll be born in the family of a devotee, in a devotee. And for the mystic yogi, they take birth in those who are in the path of perfection. They fail. I think they take birth in a family of rich family, where they have all opportunity to carry on, the devotional service.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah. So Narad is telling Vyas, Chakva Swadharmam Sharanam Bujam Hare Bhajan Napagvet Tatu Yadi Yachakva Bhajam Abutamush Yakim Kuverta Apta Bhajatam Swadharmataha. He's telling Vyasadeva in the first canto 1.5 or 1.5.12 or something. That's, my dear Vyasadeva, my dear disciple, there's no loss. There's absolutely, he may have forsaken his material occupation to engage in bhakti, and again, he prematurely falls down. So logically, we may be thinking, well, he has lost on both terms, on both paths. So he's finished. No. Narad, just like 240, Nehabikram Nashatusti, there is no danger of his being unsuccessful, Narad is saying. Very amazing. It defeats all logic, material logic. On the other hand, Narad is saying, a non-devotee, even though he's perfect in his obligations, in his duties, he doesn't gain. It's amazing. It defeats all material logic. That is why here Arjuna is saying, only you can destroy this doubt. It doesn't make sense materially. It doesn't make sense. But Krishna is going to be very emphatic now. You're going to see. There's no loss. It doesn't fall back. It's always shubh. It's auspicious. It doesn't perish. So this is a very fundamental doubt of the conditioned soul. We have to understand it's a very deep, pertinent question here. Very deep. Because the jiva generally doesn't believe in the existence of the spiritual world. Isn't it? Even when he has some faith, he's still afraid to give up the shelter of the material activities because he doesn't believe. He doesn't believe in the protection of Krishna. This is the thing. He has more faith in his material values than in the injunctions of Shastra. That is why in my homework, I gave you the clue. Remember, I told you, go and look 11, 13, 30, Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's talking about the same topic. Lord Krishna is telling Uddhav, 11, 13, 30. According to my instructions, one should fix the mind on me alone. If, however, one continues to see many different values and goals in life, rather than seeing everything within me, then although apparently awake, one is actually dreaming due to incomplete knowledge. Just as one may dream that one has wakened from a dream. That's quite subtle. Those who are believing that they're putting more values and goals in the material life, they still haven't awakened from the dream. They're still in the dream. They are dreaming that they are waking up, but actually that waking up is still within the dream. You understand? Because they haven't come to understand that everything rests within the law, Krishna. So it's quite an amazing point. One who is not Krishna conscious, Prabhupada is saying, actually it's not Prabhupada, it's the devotees who carried on translating Bhagavatam. They're saying one who is not Krishna conscious cannot understand that everything is rested on within Lord Krishna. And thus, because of that only, it's impossible for them to retire from material sense gratification. So in other words, the devotee or the conditioned soul needs a strong affirmation that the Lord can protect him. Otherwise, he won't be able to let it go from sense gratification. So that Arjuna is putting forward this predicament of the living entity. What's going to happen to me, Krishna, if I fail? It's a very pertinent. It's one of the most theological, sanguine question of the Gita, if you ask me. Extremely relevant point here. And how Krishna answers, please carry on, Vignesh, 40. You can read through.
Yeah. Okay.
40, 41. Well, it goes a long way, basically. Well, it's 47.
It ends the chapter.
Let's finish up the chapter, then we will discuss. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Text 40. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or, if unsuccessful yogi, after a long practice of yoga, he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again strives to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all the contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruity worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. And of all the yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
Thank you, Vignesh. Are you there, Gulukananda Priya, Devidasi?
Yeah, I am here.
Okay. So this is a beautiful answer, did you notice? And very interesting, I ask you the question in 40, Tata. By the way, Tata is a big industrialist in India. But what's the meaning of Tata? Vignesh can tell us because he's Indian. When you say Tata to someone, what does it mean?
Actually, it's one of the meaning is father, like someone dear to the father.
Yes.
That is the literal meaning of tat.
Yes, definitely. So in other words, we have to understand at this point in time, Lord Krishna's heart is melting of compassion for Arjuna here. In other words, the father, like you said, the senior addresses the junior Tata as like a pupil, out of affection. So this is beautiful. In other words, Arjuna, of course, is pretending to be in Maya. He's not in Maya. It's Yoga Maya. Rishikesh has taken over his senses. Rishikesa, Sevana Bhakti Ruchate. But it's a very sanguine, we are in the material world. We are dreaming that we are happy. We are dreaming that we are awakening from the dream, but that's still within the dream. So out of affection, Lord's heart is melting with compassion. Tata, my dear boy, don't worry. Don't worry. Practically, the question is irrelevant. On the platform of Krishna, it's irrelevant. But on the platform of the jivs like us, and Nitya Bada, is very relevant. Because we don't have a strong faith in Krishna. We are not totally convinced that Krishna is our protector, Vishvasa, Sudidanischoi. Not fully convinced. Yes, I know, but deep inside, we are not fully convinced. So Krishna is telling us that don't worry, my boy, don't worry. I'm here. It's a beautiful section. And he's telling him in 40, it's all good. It's all good. The yogi engaged in transcendental activities is shubh, it's mahashubh, it's very auspicious. There's no distraction. I was telling my boy today, he's 7, I've been teaching him, put your Kontimala. Today I offered him a first Kontimala. Because, Prabhupada is saying to Nanda Kumar in 1970, Nanda Kumar broke his Kontimala. 1970. And, he's putting casually on the side and saying, later in the day, I will restring my Kontimala. Prabhupada is telling him, where is your Kontimala? Right on. And then he goes, well, I broke it. I will do it later. Prabhupada said, no. And he goes, if I tell you how dangerous it is to walk in this material world without Kontimala, you will shake in your boots. You will shake in your boots. And Nanda Kumar, he told him, you go immediately put it back on, you restring it. So, this is compassion. We are always protected by the pure devotee, by Lord Krishna. He's calling him Tata. No, you cannot meet with bad. It's shubh for you. You have done good. You will never meet with evil. And this is a beautiful section. It's full of compassion. And it's very, like you can see Arjuna is quite poetic in 38. Does he perish like a river and cloud, carried away by the wind? You can see a cloud is dissipating, is breaking down, and basically it's disappearing. So we can see that there is auspiciousness, but there is also danger. I don't know if you noticed that. Because look at 41. In the back of our mind, if we are a little attached to sense gratification, we may say, well, if I fail, great, I will go to Svagalok. Prabhupada did say, I don't know if you know that, Prabhupada did say that 75 of my disciples will end up on Svagalok. Do you know that? Did you know that, Vignesh?
No.
Yes, he did say. Because we may be thinking, well, I'm not a loser, it's a win-win. If I fail, I go to Svagalok, but be careful, we discussed long back, Svagalok, the time frame is not the same. Remember? 1 day here, 6 months here is 1 day there. So you end up spending 10,000 years of their years in Svagalok. When you come back, this is the danger now. When you come back, it's like 360,000 years. You are at the end of Kali Yuga. ISKCON is gone. You understand the danger? Krishna doesn't add up this. There's a clause to it. There's a clause here. Well, it's great. I'll go and enjoy and come back and carry on my spiritual life. No, because when you come back, they will be chasing you to eat you up. You Rakshasas will be there. They will eat devotees, cannibals. So we can understand that actually. I remember Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. You may know him, Golokai, because he was in charge of Philadelphia. He used to say that all these Gurukulis taking birth in ISKCON, male and female alike, they fell. They're coming from Svagalok. They're coming from Svagalok. They have practice. After long practice, or short practice, we will see very soon that it's not the same. And they fell and they come back down in ISKCON. But it's better off to do that than to go to Svaga now, because if you go to Svaga now at the end of this life, By the time you come back, ISKCON is gone with the wind. You understand it, Danja? Goloka?
Yeah, I have a question there. Okay, you say all the Gurukulis that take birth in ISKCON. What if even they take birth in ISKCON, they don't practice? So where do they go?
That's a very good question. And actually, it is addressed in one of the purports here at the end of the 6th chapter. If you fail, once you have been given this opportunity, and we know it's coming up, Vignesh read out, 43, he revives his divine consciousness, even against his will, even if without seeking it, he revives his consciousness, he becomes attracted to yogic principle. But again, if he fails, now that he has been given a second chance, then that's dangerous, because he goes down. That is why I'm breaking my head all the time, because my boy is 7. Most probably he has practiced. But I've been telling him all the time, it's a second chance for you. Don't blow it. You have been practicing. I can see he's been practicing. But don't blow it again. It's because Kali Yuga is increasing. You know? So if you keep on rejecting the mercy of Lord Krishna, is giving you life after life's birth in Gurukul, then you're going to end up in Dutch. You know, we should finish up the business as soon as possible.
So you said these devotees, that the devotees, they're born, they got the opportunity to practice, but they decide not to do it because they have some bad experience in ISKCON and they don't believe in, you know, what happened.
Well, we are still a residual karma. You know Kishori? You know Kishori? She's still alive.
Yeah.
Kishori, she lives 10 kilometers, in France, away from me. She's practically, Mataji is saying she's the one who had, as a female, she's the one who had the most association with Prabhupada in ISKCON, in terms of hours.
She was cooking, isn't it?
Yeah, she was cooking practically 10 years flat in a row. She's like 70. She's born in 1943, so, you know. And she sent her, on the order of Prabhupada, she sent children, she had quite a few children, 3 or 4 or 5, I forgot, to Dallas in those days, way back in 72. And we know what happened. Heavy abuse. She's the one who complained to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, on her word, closed down Dallas. And she had a question, and she told me the story. She had a question in the mind. For years, she dared not asking Prabhupada this question. For years. And one day, she mustered her courage, and she asked the question. And you can well imagine what is the question. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, why did you ask me to send my boy to Dallas, and they had been abused? You're a pure devotee, you must be knowing all these things. Can you imagine? Such a daring question. Who can dare to ask this question? Such a pertinent question. She's a mother. And Prabhupada replied, yes, he understood where she's coming from, and he understood they still have their karma. You understand? It doesn't mean because we are a devotee. We know the verse 10:14:8. Tatenu kampam susamik shamano bunyanam evatma kritam vipakam ridvak vapubir vidadam namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayavak. It doesn't mean it's a token reaction we're getting, but it doesn't mean it's going to be obliterated altogether. It's still, there's a token reaction. But as parents, we should be very careful. I'm not going to send my boy to a Gurukul. I'm going to, if I send him to Gurukul, I will tell him, during the day batch, not nighttime. I'm going to put the battery on because, its battery is kind of depleting. So we have to use a discrimination. even as devotees. Is it okay? Let me see if it's okay, because I don't want to lose you. Okay. So this is the point. In other words, we still have a free will, Goloka. You know, we may be Gurukul, but it's not going to happen like as a picnic. Everything will be rosy. We may be, there may have been bad activities in ISKCON. Does it mean the process is wrong? We cannot throw the baby with the hot water, with the bath, with the hot water of the bath. You know, one Gurukul told me way back when they were suing ISKCON for all the mistreatment, isn't it? Remember what is the name of the case?
Robin George. Robin
I
George.
cannot hear you.
Sorry. Robin George.
The George case.
Yeah, Robin George. Yeah.
Yeah. The Gurukuli, he was a friend of mine. He told me actually those who are suing, most of them, they don't practice. They are smoking dope. So they want easy money. They have good reason to sue ISKCON. Okay. And ISKCON had to give, I think, $5 million or something. But again, how are they going to use the money? And he was telling me very frankly that he was a young Gurukuli. He told me that most of them, they're not chanting. They want to get easy money. So within the compound of ISKCON, we have to navigate properly. It doesn't mean that because they have been abused that we should give up Krishna consciousness. They're still dealing with their own life, their own connection. They are jeopardizing their own connection with Krishna. How many times Krishna is going to give them another life in Gurukul, another life in Gurukul? We are playing with danger. It's a very dangerous place. So it boils down to how sincere we are. What is our sincerity of purpose, our intent? It boils down to that. We cannot just take it for granted that a Gurukuli is going to happen automatically. No way. No way. No way. Krishna is facilitating
they will get a human birth. They may not.
But again, you are very far. Your voice is very far.
I don't know why. I'm just thinking.
Should I put my headphone, perhaps? Go ahead.
Okay. Are they going to take birth again in a devotee family?
Yeah.
If they don't practice, or is they going to be born in?
You have to ask Yamaraj.
I know they're still vegetarian. They won't be in the animal. They'll still get a human form.
They won't become animal. But let's discuss about that. It's a very good point. You have seen what is the difference between after the short fall down, or after a short practice or a long practice? First of all, let's discuss about that before we answer.
When they were little kids, they were practicing activities they were doing. Once they become independent, then they start, they don't chant, Hare Krishna Mama. They chant whenever like that, but they never follow, they follow the rules. They just be vegetarian.
Yeah.
That's it. That's only rule.
They won't make it back to Krishna. That's for
they
sure.
don't take intoxication also.
Yeah, they don't take so it's a mode of goodness. It's a mode of goodness. So in other words, they're going to take birth as Gurukulis as long as ISKCON is around. ISKCON is around for another 10,000 years, perhaps. But they are playing with fire because Kali Yuga is progressing. And when you engage into Maya activity, it creates kutam in your heart, a proclivity for furthering this particular type of Maya. It's called kutam in Sanskrit. So, let's say they are negligent, they chant 3-4 rounds, and they are addicted to a particular habit. Unless they work on this habit, it's not going to go. Kutam will be there. From next life again, they will have this kutam, this proclivity for this particular activity. So they have to turn the fire on the burner. You know, unless they turn the fire, it's not going to happen automatically. That is why my Guru Maharaj used to say something very pertinent, I remember. In those days, I had no kids. He would tell his Grihastha, why are you good devotees? He's saying you are good devotees. Male and the couple is good. Why, when you have children, you put them towards a mature life? You want to make sure they have good education, doctor, lawyer, and you are not pushing them just like your own path that you did yourself. You're not choking out their path just like you did your own adventure, you know, in Krishna consciousness. At one point, we gave up everything. I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned, I gave up everything. I had a good life. I was a good career at 25, 26. But my guru was kind of telling his disciples, I remember, why don't you follow the same emphasis for your own children? And he went all the way in the discussion. He said, because you are good devotees, but you don't have full faith in Krishna. And if the husband or the wife is not on the same level as the other partner, she may push, well, you know, we have to give him some good education just in case something goes wrong. At least he can make a living. It boils down to faith. How far do we have the faith that Krishna is going to protect us? What is that verse? Shraddha Vijwasakohe Sudhidan is joy. He's going to take care of my primary needs, secondary needs. Not everyone is on the same level. Not all the parents are pushing their children into Krishna consciousness. So we are guilty. If we have a child, we don't push him in Krishna consciousness. At the same time, we cannot force him. It has to come from his own accord. You know, but we have to basically rack our brain to always make sure that he's connected, bring him to the temple. We are just facilitating him, you know, but he's got his own free will. He's got his own karma. You know, it's not going to happen automatically. This is my answer, Goloka.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I'm born in this kind. I can do any damn thing. I'm veg, you know, I'm veg. Who cares? So the cargouche is veg also. The rabbit is veg. You know, veg is, what's the big deal with veg? There's 60 crore people vegetarian on earth. 60 crore.
Anyways, they had to go through their karmas and they had to take birth again. That's the ultimate thing.
They will take birth again as devotees, you know. Just like my boy, I can see it's mixed, you know. I'm pushing, I'm trying, but my wife is also, she has also her own perspective on the whole thing. You know, her perspective is different from mine. So I have to accommodate with both. So it's a mixed karma, you know. When you get married, it's a mixed karma. You merge, your karma merges with the one of your wife, merges with the one of your kid. It's not an easy affair. But at least the value should be there. I always tell him the same. You have your free will. I'm pushing the philosophy. You have your free will. How are you going to use your free will? You are the architect of your own destiny. So I'm trying to instill in him the values of his free will. No one's going to do it for you. You know, and philosophically, he's quite inclined. So I hope that's going to work. Because I won't be around for long. You know, I won't be around forever. So what is the difference between... Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Another thing is that, like, the parent become pure devotees, they go back to Godhead. Definitely they will bring back the kids, isn't it?
The pure devotees will bring back the kids first?
No, if the parent become pure devotee, go back home, back to Godhead.
That's a different story. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yes, but I mean, if you're on the level of Prahlad, yes, definitely.
Okay.
Prahlad, you know the story. He wanted to free his father. The Shingadev told him, you don't have to worry. 27, was it, Vignesh? 27 generations up and down.
Yeah.
Already. But this is Prahlad Maharaj. It's Mahajan. No? The Mahabhagwan. Yes, but we have to understand.
The Shastras often glorify the devotee. Like Shastras, like Puranas often glorify the devotee in such a way that one becomes a devotee, then hundreds of generations of his ancient forefathers and upcoming gets liberated, something like that on that lines.
Yeah, but again, we there is free will. This is the very important point. Yeah. There is free will. How are we going to use our free will? And of course, suffering ultimately is the remedy for the foolish people, including devotees. Why do we suffer in ISKCON individually? Because we are a little foolish. And it takes suffering to be rectified by Mother Nature. We understand at the end of the day, well, I did so many nonsense, but now I got the point. Finally, I'm getting the point. Prabhupada was right. I should have understood 20 years ago, 40 years ago. So that's the ultimate remedy, even as a devotee. When the kid is going to go through one marriage that toppled over, and he's going to try this, he's going to try that, he's going to remember, oh yes, my father was telling me this. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps he was right. I should give it a try, a good try. You know, because they have this value. So at least, you know, in the early years of their life, they have been instilled with good values. But then they fly their own airplane. It's not going to happen automatically, Goloka. Don't fall into that. Do you agree with me?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen automatically like with a magic wand, you know. No. No.
Suffering. Ultimately, we should have attraction for Krishna. Like if we are going back to spiritual world, then it means that we have to engage in relationship with the Lord in one of the 5 rases. If we don't have a taste for that in this life, then it doesn't make sense that we'll go back to spiritual world and be comfortable there as well.
There's no concession, you know. Of course, Mahaprabhu is there and Nityananda Prabhu is there. Again, they will give it another birth, another birth, another birth, another birth. But you know, at one point they have to turn the fire on their own in their own life, just like to turn the fire on the back burner. You know, you want to make the sabji, you want that the sabji is boiling, is cooking properly. You have to turn the fire. There's no question. So now, what is the difference between? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, the most population of the world that they will not go back to Godhead. They have to take birth again and again.
Prabhupada did say practically everyone that you see down the street will not take birth to human form of life. It's heavy. It's not a small timer philosophy. It's a heavy philosophy. Not everyone is good. Just as a magic wand, I'm a human, I've got a human form of life, automatically I get another human form of life. No way. As devotees, yes, we are protected. But again, doesn't mean we're going back to Godhead. Bit by bit, slowly, very slowly. Some devotees are very sincere. Like one devotee left the world a few days ago I was told, I was already in India, close to New Mayapur, perhaps mid-70s. But he distributed a lot of books. And he was, I don't know his state of consciousness, I was not there. But it's happening every day. Devotees are leaving the body, leaving the body, leaving the body. We're getting old. You know? It's not a...
I just have one question.
Yes.
Is it that go back to spiritual one has to be in the Uttama Mahabhagavad stage? Is it like, suppose there's a person who is chanting 16 rounds and doing everything, he's in the Madhyamadhikari. He's not in the stage of ecstasy or bhava.
Yes.
But still, he remembers Krishna at the time of death.
That's it. What is the verse definition of Uttam Bhakti? Anyabilashita Shunyam, Ganakama Navitam, Anukulina Krishnanu, Shiranam Bhakti Rutama. If you stick to that definition, your abilash, your desire is not encumbered by Gyan and karma. You may have even a little bit of karma and Gyan, but you don't let them encumber your pursuit of bhakti. Then Anukul, it's favorable. Anukulina Krishnanu Shiranam, you cultivate favorably Krishna consciousness. You are practicing Uttam Bhakta on the level of sadhana. Then you become an Uttam Bhakta on the level of Raganut, on the level of Bhav, on the level of Prem. But if you leave your body and you are still practicing Sadhaka Uttam Bhakta, you go back to that. As simple as that. Prabhupada said emphatically, you chant 16 rounds, you follow the 4 ranks. It doesn't say you have to be a Vishnu Parikar. But where is it written? It doesn't say you have to be Mahabhagavan. If you practice Uttam Bhakti, definition of Uttam Bhakti according to Rupa Goswami is not reserved for Premi Bhakta. Your Uttam Bhakti can be there on the level of sadhana, even Vedi sadhana. You understand? There's a difference between practicing Uttam Bhakti on the level of sadhana and a Mishra Bhakta. Be careful. It doesn't mean, see, it's a very interesting discussion. It doesn't mean, the verse is there in the 11th canto. There's back-to-back 2 verses. Someone who has an attraction for Krishna Katha, right? But he's still being assaulted by his vasanas, his desires coming from samskar. And sometimes he succumbs. But Krishna tells Uddhava, sometimes he succumbs. But he feels very bad. He feels repentant. I betrayed my guru. I betrayed Krishna. But Krishna says he should not fall into hopelessness and despair. Oh, I'm finished. I should give up my body. I should stop all this. I'm not fit. No, he should carry on. Should carry on. And if he remains, if he sticks to the definition of Uttam Bhakta, Anyabilashita Shunya, he remains a practicing Uttam Bhakta. Just like Apichat Sudaracharo, this is the same discussion. Even Krishna says, you have seen the verse, Vignesh, 11th canto, what is it, 20th chapter, Jata Shado, Nishayat, you know that verse? Someone who engages into Krishna Katha is very sincere. He sticks to that definition of Uttam Bhakti as defined by Rupa Goswami. Sometimes he may succumb. It doesn't mean he's a Mishra Bhakti. Mishra Bhakta. Kapila defines Mishra Bhakti in the 3rd canto. What does he say? Remember? What is definition of Mishra Bhakti according to, Mishra Bhakti contaminated by Tamagun? Is practicing Uttam Bhakti for the sake of harming others. This is not just your state of mind. When you pray to Krishna, please remove my anarthas. This is Uttam Bhakti. Kapil Dev defines Uttam Bhakti contaminated by Rajaguna. Not Uttam Bhakti, Mishra Bhakti, contaminated by Rajaguna. What does he say? He says, when you want to, you are extremely fruitive in your path. You are very fruitive. You practice, let's say, Bhakti, you chant Hare Krishna to get a nice car, to get a nice house. This is Mishra. I don't think it's your state. I don't think it is your consciousness, Vignesh. Now, definition of Mishra Bhakti contaminated by Sattvagun. You want to stop suffering. You want to leave this world. You want to be peaceful. Krishna says in the Gita 245, give up this sentiment of safety and protection, Arjuna. So as long as we are sticking to that verse, Anyabilashita Shunyam, You are on Uttam Bhakta, on the platform of sadhana. You don't seem to agree, but I mean, I want to hear. You may not agree.
I definitely agree with you. I just as a follow-up question. I just wanted to understand, suppose if a devotee, like, we desire like Krishna Lok, right? We want to go back to Golok Vrindavan. At the time of death, we just in the practice of Vaidhi Bhakti. But our desire is there that we should go back to Golok. Then I don't think so. Can we go with the practice of Vaidhi Bhakti to Golok Vrindavan, or we'll go back to Vaikuntha and then there will further progress after getting the liberation?
So we're going to that's a very good question pertaining to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We will discuss very soon when we do that book. Okay. You can go back to Golok, provided, depending on your Ishtadev. What is your Ishtadev? Is it Mahaprabhu? Is it Narayan? Is it Lord Ram? That's to do with your Ishtadev. But if you are on the level of Vaidhi Bhakti, then you can go back to Golok. But it will be Mahatma Gyan type of liberation, Mahatma Gyan Prem. But if you are on the level of Raganuga Bhakti, it's a different type. It's a different type of destination. It's explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But you will go back to the spiritual world. You will go back to the spiritual world, even on the platform of Vaidhi Bhakti. Now, if your Ishtadev is Narayan, then you will go to Vaikunth. That's your own volition. If it is Ram, you go to Ayodhya. It doesn't say we should become of course, you know the answer also. You don't go straight back to Golok. You go to Bhoma. Yeah. And there, at the contact of the Ragatmika Bhakta, they are the personal servants of Lord Krishna, the personal confidence. You just touched up the last and small blemishes, the last small bits that needs to be rectified or touched up at the contact of the Ragatmika Bhakta. And then you move on. But Rupa Goswami is very emphatic, this is otherwise. He says Anyabilashita, that little suffix here, ta, doesn't exclude life-threatening situation. He explained, Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The ta is there. Ta means even if you are in real life-threatening situation, someone is putting a revolver on your temple, on your head, and you say, Lord Krishna, save me. Technically, we may say, well, he's not praying for Krishna Prem, he's not praying for Krishna, he's praying Lord Krishna to save his life. But that's not excluding, pure bhakti, because it's a life-threatening situation. It's mentioned by Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's why ta is there, the little ta, anyabilashita, shunyam. So this is a state of affair. But again, like Goloka brought up the topic, we have to be very careful because even for my son, I can see, he's like 50-50. He's only 7. How far am I going to break myself to making Krishna conscious? How strong is my Krishna consciousness to try all means to make him Krishna conscious? If I'm negligent, well, he's got his own path after all. Let him fly his own airplane. If I'm in a mode of ignorance, I may come up to that decision, even as a devotee. So many factors are there. Even my wife may say, well, leave him alone. He'll find his own path.
It's not possible, I think, to control the life of other person. Like even in case of Prabhupada,
exactly.
His wife had a different inclination. The sons had different inclinations. Although he was a great devotee, Prabhupada himself.
Avitat Sharia, yes, exactly. We discussed long back in the 5th chapter, remember, we cannot We cannot induce people to act. We cannot create the fruits of action of others. We are Jivatmas. Even at the Tacharya, he had 6 sons. 3 became Mayavada. He is God himself. He is Vishnu Tattva. This is the nature of Tatashta Shakti. We have free will. We cannot remove the free will propensity. Even in the spiritual world, Prabhupada said, even a gopi can fall down. If she wants. She will never want. But potentially she can fall down. We can put our hand in the fire for 15 minutes. I can jump off the window right here. I'm not going to do it, but I can potentially do it. This is amazing philosophy. Yeah?
So the solution is that we just have to pray. That's the only thing we can do for all the souls. Because they have the free will to do whatever the karma they have go through. And we, like devotee, we're very compassionate, especially with your parents, if you're very close with somebody, you just have to pray for them,
Yeah, pray for them, definitely. It's a very good point. Mm-hmm. I've been praying for one person recently, and I saw the effect. I mean, I was very sincere. I was trying to be sincere. I'm not very sincere, but I was trying for that person, and it worked. I was surprised. I mean, I was like, wow. And it works better when you pray for others than for yourself. Because we tend to be self-suicidal in this world. We don't care even. We are so impersonalistic that we are even impersonalistic with ourselves. Isn't it? We don't care about ourselves. This is the epitome of impersonalism. We are even impersonal with our own person. So if we have love for someone else, that's at least we pray out of love for that other person. It works better in one sense. Isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I think we finished off the whole section. Do you have any question? I'm sure you got it fine, but remember, there's a difference between a full practice and a long practice, because that may come up in the exam. So be aware of that. And
can you talk a little bit more about this long practice and short practice?
Okay, Bignesh, now it's your turn. You explain to her.
Short practice and long practice.
Yeah, it's mentioned in the Gita, 643, 642. There's 2 types of fall down, remember? Yeah. After long practice, after a short practice.
Oh, yeah, I read that, yeah.
So what is the difference?
In text 42, it says that if unsuccessful yogi after long practice of yoga, he takes the birth in the family of transcendentalist. But if it's a short practice, I suppose he takes birth in the family of rich aristocracy, the family of righteous people. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes, correct. So, and Srila Prabhupada, out of his sheer humility, is saying in 42 that by the grace of the divine arrangement, this is what happened to me, Prabhupada is saying. I met by the divine order, His divine grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he's kind of putting himself in that, can you imagine his humility? He's putting himself in that category. Oh, I fell down after a long practice. That is why, it's such an humility. And both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. And later we met by the order of the transcendental system. So can you imagine? He's putting himself as if he fell down after a long practice. That's you can write an essay on this. It's beautiful. This is someone, well, what should I write as an essay? Well, it's right here. It gives mood and mission. It reveals the mood of Prabhupada. Can you imagine? He's putting himself in 42. In other words, I fell down after a long practice and I took birth again. And by the grace of my Guru, I got lifted up again. This is Prabhupada, his humility, can you imagine? And people may say, well, look at him. he's a dropout. They don't understand between the lines the humility of Srila Prabhupada.
Asal Mohan Lila.
Sorry?
This Asal Mohan Lila.
Yes.
We call now Asal Mohan Lila.
Yeah, Asal Mohan
We
Lila.
misunderstand.
Yeah. And again, he revives 43, he revives the consciousness of his previous life. And then the end of the 6th chapter is beautiful. Basically, that is the epitome. This is 47. You have to learn it by heart, by the way. Don't hesitate to call me anytime on WhatsApp and just recite your shlok. And 47 is one of them. This is the summary of, this is the cherry on the cream. That all what we discuss, over what we discussed, Arjun, so far, please remind yourself that the yogi, the best yogi, is one who is united to me in yoga, most intimately united. Now, the question was in my homework, what happened if we stop along the way?
It come back for me. What it come back? It just, if we stop on the way, we continue this. Next book.
Yeah, but it's well explained by Srila Prabhupada in 47. I wanted you to quote that. I don't know if you picked it up. In other words, I'm just reading out. When we say yoga, we mean bhakti yoga. All other yogas are different landmarks on the path towards bhakti. From the beginning of Karma Yoga to the end of Bhakti Yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma Yoga, without fruitive results, is the beginning of this path. When Karma Yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation is called Jnana Yoga. When Jnana Yoga increases in meditation on the Super Soul and the mind is on him, is called Ashtanga Yoga. When one surpasses Ashtanga Yoga, comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Bhakti Yoga. And he goes, but to analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand this other path, these other yogas. And then he goes, one who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, Raja Yogi. So we have to go all the way to Bhakti Yoga. This is actually our state of affair. We are into Bhakti Yoga at least. But we have to complete the path. This is the thing. We cannot stop, even on the ladder of Bhakti, we cannot stop midway. If we stop midway, we'll be given another life. And we'll start off wherever we left off. But we cannot say, well, it's going to happen automatically. No. Not everyone is going to Lord Krishna in this life. Doesn't mean because we join together, no, nothing to do with that. How far are we committed to our entity to reach Krishna?
So whenever we left off, we have to start from Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga.
That won't be, that won't be your case, Goloka, because you are a devotee.
Okay.
So even if you don't make it in this life, you will start off wherever your state of affair, your state of mind was when you're going to leave your body. But I know you're going to go back to bed.
No, I'm thinking if we don't make it up, then we will start from Bhakti again.
She's asking on our behalf, on my behalf.
Basically, you are a Bhakti yogi, isn't it? No, the three of us, we cannot deny. We're not into Karma Yoga. We are into the path of Bhakti. No one can deny it. But Yam Yam Apis Param Bhavam Jajatanti Karevaram. In Krishna, very emphatically in the Gita says, you have to think of me alone. He doesn't say, think of me and also of your wife and a little bit of your car. No, alone. And of course, you have distributed many books, you have done this. Mahaprabhu may jump into your mind also. Nityananda Prabhu was just a few days ago. That's the last leg of mercy. That's the last leg of mercy. Nityananda Prabhu. That is why I've been telling all the time the same point. We should be preaching Panchatattva consciousness. Raja Krishna is very elevated. He's too high, Braj Bhakti. Radha Krishna is accessible on the level of Braj Bhakti. Isn't it? So the best path is Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nai Anya. It's not, we have to go through Panchatattva. Narottam is saying, if we don't have access to Panchatattva, we cannot access to Radha Krishna. There's no question. There's no question. So as devotees of ISKCON, we should be preaching Panchatattva, Mahaprabhu, Gaunitai, Nityananda. Radha Krishna is very high. And what else I wanted to say? I'm almost finished. What's the common feature between Gyan and Ashtanga Yoga?
Like they both have.
Okay, go ahead, Billy.
I was just saying that they both have a common feature of detachment and knowledge. Like yogis belong to the category on the stage of Brahma Bhuta, Brahman realization.
Yes.
In that sense, they both can be termed in that state. Where only Ashtanga yogis can move further towards Paramatma realization, which Jnana yogis cannot. And only after Paramatma we can go to the Bhagavan realization, if you follow the normal process of yoga ladder.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So basically, what I wanted to emphasize here when I ask this question is, Arjun is still confused because he didn't understand that work in full knowledge is non-reactive. And therefore, the same as inaction. Now, we know that from the fourth chapter. Someone who sees action and inaction in action is the real seer. Arjun didn't understand that someone who works in full knowledge is non-reactive. And that it is in action, actually. It's karma-free. So as a result of that, in the beginning of the fifth chapter, he asked, which is more beneficial, work or renunciation of work? And Krishna says, okay, they are both equal, but work in knowledge is better than renunciation. Why? Because it's easier and safer, isn't it? Then he goes, Karma Yoga can be replaced with Jnana Yoga only by a person who is sufficiently purified by detached work. So in other words, we cannot access to Jnana Yoga immediately. That is why even the Ashtanga Yogi in the beginning, he has to work. The Yoga Rudukshu, he has to work. And sixth chapter explain one can attain self-realization by method of Ashtanga Yoga. But that was my point. Just like in Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga is suitable for a person who has been purified by Karma Yoga. Why do you think the Yoga Rudukshu in the beginning has to turn to Karma Yoga? Because he's getting purified by that, and then only he can access. So what I was trying to emphasize is both the Jnana Yogi and the Ashtanga Yogi has to turn to Karma Yoga in the beginning to become purified. Otherwise, they won't get their ends met. You get the point, Vignesh? Vignesh is gone. Okay. So I'll stop here. Are you okay, Goloka?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm sorry, I just have to be at the temple today to do my class. Otherwise, if I go back home, then I'll be late. I won't be able to attend.
Anyway,
I have some distraction over here.
Yeah, I understand. Not worry. So I'll stop here and I'll put the class on the YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Take care.
Are you in Vrindavan?
No, I'm in Indore, but we should be going to Vrindavan quite soon. Let me close.